Hi, this is Srini again. Last week I had published one video. This is regarding sharing my experiences training for 10K. The goal is to do a sub 40-minute 10K. That may or may not be possible given my age and the fact that I am not naturally a long distance or a middle distance runner. But I would like to share my experience and put out a series of videos in this regard, showing my progress or lack thereof. For now, I am making progress. It is on the slow side. So this is the second video in that series, and hopefully there will be many more. The video last week basically was a summary of all the things that I was doing towards this. This particular video I would like to talk specifically about one of the concepts that I am following, which is the aerobic base building. So my thought is initially to talk about what I am doing, and also then after that maybe the latter part of the video get into some of the basics on the concepts related to aerobic base building and such. So let's get on with it. My objective of publishing these videos are kind of threefold, I believe. One is I would like to get your dearly love to get your comments on the video, and if there is any of the things that I am doing which can be done better, or maybe I am doing some of the things incorrectly, then please let me know in the comments, and I would love to learn from you. The second thing is that hopefully this is serving as a motivation for a lot of people, both in my age group or even older than my age group, even younger than my age group, and hopefully this will motivate more people to consider the importance of their fitness and health and do something about it. The third thing I'm looking for as a goal in publishing these videos is the fact that I am using a lot of concepts, also using a lot of gadgets, and I think these things are helping me towards achieving my goal and to kind of identify where I am. For example, I am to identify the fact that I am in zone 2. I use a couple of different concepts. Concepts and devices. So the aerobic base building is one thing. The concept of aerobic base building, working out in the zone 2 intensity, helps a lot in a variety of things which we will talk about in this video. The second thing is using the devices appropriately, such as the heart rate monitor and the lactate monitor. Helps me in ensuring that I am sticking to the right intensity as per plan in my training. Now, without these devices or gadgets, I think I would be a little lost. That is not to say that without these gadgets, the heart rate monitor or the lactate meter, we cannot train. But I have also seen in my experience that there are some coaches who shy away from these concepts and some of these gadgets or devices. So I think when we are, in my opinion, and I've actually talked to and discussed this with some of the coaches and some of the people who work with coaches across different sports. I'm talking about particularly in India. I believe that if athletes need to get world class, then we need to actually follow these concepts. And some of these devices and gadgets, if we make use of them, it's not a problem. I cannot understand why some of the leading coaches shy away when we talk about these concepts. Like, let's say for instance, we are looking at what is the heart rate. I would rather, if we are training an athlete or even a non-athlete, to stay within a particular heart rate zone for it, for example, because we are doing aerobic base building or tempo runs or then it makes more sense to use a heart rate monitor. I know it is expensive, but if we can even do that to a handful of the athletes who are the toppers in a particular academy, if we can get sponsors who sponsor these athletes, they readily do so with nutrition. But could these sponsors not sponsor these athletes for these devices? Let's say somebody will buy 5 heart rate monitors for an athletic school. That would also be very helpful, I think, and for a handful of those athletes, these heart rate monitors could be used. But I hear that coaches are shying away. They do not want to use these concepts or these devices. The lactate meter is a fantastic tool to identify, even for 1 or 2 athletes. The lactate meter itself is a little bit inherently expensive, but not impossibly expensive. And also those test strips are slightly even more expensive, but again they are not impossible to buy. And I think they add a lot of value. So that is why I think, as an individual, as a 57-year-old individual, I won't call myself a beginner in running, but I'm certainly not world-class runner, and I have not attended running races consistently or even trained consistently. That in itself is an issue. I mean, one must train consistently, and that's what my goal for right now is to train consistently using some of these concepts and get help from these devices. So even though these devices are a bit on the expensive side, I've had to make sacrifices to get these for myself, and they have played a great role in keeping me motivated, and also to understand that I am using the concepts correctly. Now, I think through this video and hopefully through the upcoming videos, I will clarify more on, get into more details on some of the things I'm talking about. But this is what I wanted to, have as the goals of my content that I'm putting out. One is that what are the concepts that I'm following, and again, through your comments and suggestions, I would love to learn where I could do a little differently, or maybe I'm doing something incorrectly and could probably correct myself. So I would be very grateful to you if you could comment and let me know your suggestions. That's number 1. And number 2 is, if a 57-year-old guy who is not anywhere near a world-class athlete, quite the opposite in fact, can achieve some goals. So my goal is to run a sub 40-minute 10K. I keep repeating myself, I know, but my immediate goal is to run a 60-minute or a sub 60-minute 10K, and then improve upon that by 5 minutes, 10 minutes, until I get to a sub 40-minute 10K. That's my goal. We have to see how it pans out. But I'm going to use these concepts. So what are the concepts? So in this particular video, I'm talking about aerobic base building. One of the concepts that I follow. Renowned people in this field who have achieved quite a bit, like Dr. Phil Maffetone, Dr. Peter Attia, many others, suggest that we work in zone 2 intensities about 80% of the time, and work at higher intensities 10% of the time, the remaining 20% of the time. So that enthralled me. So if we run slow or cycle slow or do whatever workouts slow for most of the time, and work out at higher intensities for only about 20%, how is that going to help us progress? there's a lot of theory and concepts and practicality behind that enthralls me, and I'm glad I'm using those concepts. So this is the concept that I would like to talk in detail about in this particular video, the aerobic base building. So what is aerobic base building? It is that we are working in the aerobic zone, which is zone 2. And what is aerobic zone or zone 2? It is that we are able to get as much oxygen. We are working at an intensity where there is a demand for oxygen, whatever work we do or even when we are at rest. And the intensity of the work that we are doing is such that there is a demand for oxygen and our body is able to meet the demand for oxygen. So we are able to take in as much oxygen as required, and our body is able to make the oxygen available to all the tissues as per whatever the requirement is. And so there is always lactate getting produced, but our body is also able to process the lactate such that there is no buildup of lactate. So when we talk about all this and the intensity that makes all this possible, then we are in zone 2. Now, how do we ensure that we are in zone 2? We talked about this briefly in the first video as well. Without any devices, without any gadgets, we have the talk test where it is not as easy as I am talking to you right now, but it's a little bit difficult to talk full sentences, but it is possible to talk full sentences. Then we are in zone 2. Number 2 is we are not forced to breathe through our mouth. We are able to do nose breathing. That's a second kind of a test. And third is we are able to look outside externally, which means that if we are running on the road, then we are able to admire the scenery or the traffic or whatever. Or if you're running on the treadmill, then look out the window and look at the scenery and what's happening on the road and just outside the window and things like that. Then we are in zone 2, as opposed to if we are only able to think about, have some internal thoughts such as how am I going to complete the next 5 kilometers? How am I going to complete the next 2 kilometers? Am I going to be able to keep this pace? What is my heart rate? How can I ensure it's not climbing beyond a certain limit? And if we are only able to think like this, then we are perhaps in intensities that are higher than zone 2. So these 3 are kind of tests that we can do without devices. If we do have devices, then the heart rate monitor is one of the best, and we have zones. Once again, in this video, once I've had this kind of a general discussion on what I'm doing and what concepts and what devices I'm using, then we could probably look at some slides about a little bit more about the concept. So like I've been saying the previous video as well, I'm not a sports scientist and I'm certainly not a world-class athlete, but I'm quite the opposite. Not really a beginner runner, but I've been running on and off. So running is one of the things that I'm talking about, and I would like to make a series of videos on training for strength, and that will be another set of videos. And so anyway, so at this point, the aerobic base building. So we are talking about how do we ensure that we are in zone 2 without any devices and gadgets. The second is if we can have a heart rate monitor, it's extremely helpful. So heart rate monitor, with the heart rate monitor, we can look at what is our heart rate and ensure that we are within zone 2, the heart rate that corresponds to zone 2. Now again, when we are talking of zones, there are many systems where we have a 7-zone system, we have a 5-zone system, etc. And I also have seen that in the 5-zone system itself, people use a percentage of max VO2. Some people use maximum heart rate to calculate different zones. And even in there, I have seen there are slight variations in the calculations that kind of classify the zones. So in later slides, right after this talk, I think in later slides on this video, we will also look at some of the concepts and how do we identify the zones. So I'm talking about a 5-zone system, with zone 5 being max effort, zone 1 being extremely easy effort, and zone 2 is the aerobic base building intensity, or the zone 2 intensity. Okay, so if we have a heart rate monitor, then we can ensure that we are within the zone 2, above zone 1 with our heart rate, but below zone 3 and above. So Dr. Phil Maffetone, I believe he has suggested, he says that use 180 minus age and then add or subtract depending upon if the fitness levels and whether the person has chronic diseases and things like that, whether to add 5 or 10 beats per minute or subtract 5 or 10 beats per minute, and to use that as the maximum heart rate to ensure that we are in zone 2. So that's a good starting point. So that's where I started also, but I found that slightly higher than that in beats per minute could also ensure that I am in zone 2. And I found that having a heart rate monitor was extremely helpful. Nowadays we have the smartwatch, and the heart rate monitor is more accurate than the smartwatch, I found. And there is always a difference, a slight bit of a difference. But my personal experience with the heart rate monitor, I use a Polar H10. I've used it for about a couple of years now, but now I think something's gone bad. I need to check. Maybe the strap has gone bad. I think the transmitter which you plug in the center, I think that's okay. I've changed the battery, and what happens is, the value goes down. My heartbeat cannot be, it drops from, let's say, 120 to 120, 115, 110, 43. That cannot be my true heart rate, and I confirm that, of course, with my smartwatch, and I know I'm still around the 120. So I've tried a couple of things. I've put the strap in a dishwasher using a wash bag, and it seemed to be okay, but excuse me, but it's giving the same problem yet. So I don't know if the strap has gone bad. So using devices, this is one disadvantage, I know, because it can go bad, and it is expensive. But the heart rate monitor doesn't have recurring costs. You just have to change the battery once a year, once every couple of years, and the battery is not that expensive at all. So the heart rate monitor, it is a CR2025, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so that's that as far as the heart rate monitor goes. So nowadays with the heart rate monitor, I need to work out what is wrong with my heart rate monitor, maybe the strap, but I now use the smartwatch to look at my heart rate, and it's easier to see it on the cell phone. I work on the treadmill, and it's easy to see my heart rate, whatever it is, and as it's changing, if it's shown on the smartwatch, but with the on the mobile. But if I need to see it on the smartwatch, I need to keep doing this. It's not continually available. I don't know if the smartwatch can continually display on the cell phone. So far, to the brief extent I looked, it doesn't do that, but I'll look deeper, maybe there is a way to do that. But anyway, the heart rate monitor or the smartwatch is a good way to check the heart rate range that we are working out at, and to ensure that we are in the correct zone. Okay, now the lactate monitor. The lactate monitor is another fantastic device. Now, Dr. Phil Maffetone says 180 minus age, and then add 5 or 10 beats, or subtract 5 or 10 beats, and use that as a starting point. But still, how do we know we are in zone 2? We can use that, and also invoke the talk test, and that we are able to breathe, continue to breathe through our nose, and also we are able to admire the scenery and things like that. So in the combination with the heart rate, we can kind of think that ensure that we are in zone 2. But if you really need to ensure that you are in zone 2 or in zone 3 or whatever zone that you're looking at, then the lactate meter is a fantastic device. It's a little difficult to use, not as easy to use as a blood sugar monitor. And we will have one video just exclusively about the lactate meter that I use. Again, the lactate meter is a bit expensive, but it is not unaffordable. We'll have to make some sacrifices in terms of not eating outside for some number of weeks or whatever it is that it takes for us to buy a lactate meter, and it is expensive, but it's not unaffordable. The strips are a little bit more expensive, but again, not unaffordable. We'll have to make some sacrifices. It depends on our priorities. And I love the lactate meter. So the lactate meter, if it is under 2 millimoles per liter, which is under 2 millimolar, say 1.6, 1.7 to 1.9, that ensures that we are in zone 2. And then if we work at higher intensities, the lactate starts to increase, but at that pace we can sustain that for about an hour, maybe even an hour and a half, maybe even a couple of hours. Beyond that, if we increase the intensity, you can see that there's a sudden spike in the lactate, a logarithmic spike, and a logarithmic increase, and that is not sustainable for a very long time at all. The lactate meter can tell you all that. Again, it's a little more difficult to use. We need to wash our hands before, at least because in the case of using the treadmill, I will not be able to wash my hands during the running activity. But what I do is I thoroughly soap and wash my hands before starting the run, and I have a small cloth towel that I use to ensure that sweat doesn't dribble to my fingers at all, at least until after I finish the lactate testing. Then I also have to use an alcohol swab, and once I prick my finger and drawn blood, I do that 3 times. So first time when I draw the blood out, I take a couple of seconds and then wipe it off with a hand towel, not the cloth one, a paper towel, and then wait a little bit before I squeeze another drop out, wait for a bit and take that out as well. And the third drop is what I use to test the lactate level, and have to ensure that we don't, the test strip that is now in the lactate meter is not touching the skin. If it does, then sweat and whatever else can get onto the strip, and it's going to give erroneous readings. I have seen that also. Whereas with the sugar monitor, you don't need to be this careful. Sometimes I don't even use an alcohol swab, and boom, I get the sugar value. But not the lactate meter, it's very sensitive. And if we can do all this, then we know what is the lactate value at that particular intensity at that particular time, and then we know if we are at zone 2 or we are beyond zone 2. And it's a revelation for me to see what are the intensities that I can work inside and still be in zone 2. It surprised me also. So we will talk more about some of these concepts, and also about the lactate curve and things like that. So I have a couple of slides that we can go through right after this talk that will talk about the concepts and about some of the, not the device per se. I'm not going to be talking about the heart rate monitor or the lactate meter in this, but we'll probably have separate sessions on that. But from the lactate meter, we can look at a lactate curve, and then we can see what those curves, we just talked about how can the value from the lactate meter help us ensure that we are in zone 2 or beyond zone 2. And we look at the lactate curve and talk a little bit more about that, and some of the other concepts that I'm following too. So first I wanted to have this talk, and then to follow that up perhaps with either in the same video or perhaps in another video about some of the concepts that I'm following, and also the devices that I'm using and how those devices can help ensure that we are training at the right zone. Thank you.
Ah.